Hello, friends. Um, Hi, remember me? I did this last year, once a year. That's my podcast. It's Candace. This is 100% Candace. Um, Apparently, I'm just 100% Candace out in the world, and I don't come talk to you folks anymore. I decided to record an episode because, well, it's been a year since the last episode. But not only that, last year when I did an episode, it was during the Marshall McLuhan podcaster roundtables, which unfortunately don't seem to be happening this summer. It's the first time in, I don't know, maybe about 8 years that we're not all getting together. But that happens. Things happen, life happens. So I'm missing my podcaster friends and our live episode recording. But last year feels so ridiculous that it's been a year since I've recorded. But last year, uh, I recorded an episode and I did sort of a breakdown of all, not all, but a number of the movies that I had watched the year before as part of my 100 horror movies in 92 days challenge. So I did that in preparation for last year's challenge. So I did that again. It starts every year, August 1st, and goes until Halloween, the end of Halloween. So that's 92 days. A lot of people ask, why 100 horror movies in 92 days? That's a really weird number. It's because that's just how many days there are between August 1st and October 31st. So 3 full months of horror madness, which is great. But so last year I did it and I actually watched all 100 movies and 100 this is 100 movies that I have never watched before. That's the idea. The idea is that they're new movies, not new movies, but new movies, new views. So it was was it less challenging? It might have been a little bit less challenging than the year before because I was sort of prepared for it. Um, this year coming up, I've sort of already got lists and lists of movies to watch, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we get 100 full movies finished this year. Believe me, I'm never gonna run out. I'm never gonna run out of movies that I haven't seen before because like thousands of movies are made every single year. Many of those are horror movies. They're not all American movies or Canadian movies. I can watch anything from any country. And the beauty of online streaming now is that I have access to so many more movies that never would have made the video store shelves of a random, Blockbuster or Jumbo Video in Canada. So now I have a wealth of movies to watch all the time. So I kind of love this challenge because it really pushes me to watch new things and to try new things and just get out there and see what's available. But so like last year, I am going to give you kind of a some high points from last year's viewing, what I saw. So when I look at my letterboxed list, I am on letterboxed. Feel free to join me. You can follow along, watch me put these movies in my list. You can I don't review every movie, but I do have some reviews on there so you can read those. But when I take my list 100 horror movies in 92 days 2023 and I go by rating, I am actually I was looking through this going, wow, there are some really great movies. I would say one, two, three. There's at least 12 movies that were nope, we're at 15. Oh my goodness, the number of four and no 5-star movies, but 4 and 4.5-star movies is about 20. Just like amazing movies. I watched Kronos for the first time, which is the first major movie by Guillermo del Toro, which was just so beautiful and had such Yeah, I mean his whole style was there right from the beginning. I can't believe I never saw it originally. It was right up my alley. Um, I watched Last Night in Soho, which was Edgar Wright's sort of foray into horror, and it was again also just beautiful. There were so many beautiful movies. People never think of horror as a place where there's going to be beauty, but I can't tell you how gorgeous some of these movies are. I also watched a number of giallo films and Dario Argento, but Opera was one of the ones I watched, which just has this amazing visual look of this woman who has she's taken captive, and her eyes are have to be wide, and she's being shown a murder at the time, and the way that the killer has decided to keep her eyes open is by taping all these pins along the bottom of her eyelid so she can't blink, because when she blinks she sort of pokes the top of her lid, but it just makes us like the look of these pins across her eyes is just so stunning, and probably terrifying for some people who have issues around eye trauma. But there you go. That's the kind of stuff I like to look at. But let me go over a couple of specific movies. So there was um, uh, one of the highest movies that I loved the most. I think probably this is actually the movie I loved the most out of all of them. It's a movie called Bog. Um, and it's sort of a weird, like it's a real weird sort of thing. It's a cheapo creature feature. I do love creature features, but it's a cheapo creature feature to the point where the actual bad guy is wild. It's literally just a man standing in a suit that has kind of a fish head on it. Like it is so ridiculously cheap. But this movie is just like it sets the scene so well. They've created all these characters in like this weird sort of town in the middle of nowhere. These characters are so like it feels Canadian, but I don't think that this movie is Canadian. I think it's just made sort of, you know, near the Great Lakes, maybe like Michigan, Ohio, uh, that sort of thing. These people who just like live in town, they will die in town. That's what they do. And then people who come to visit. There's these tourists who come visit, um, but there's also bizarrely a love story in this, which I guess isn't so strange that there's a love story. But the love story is between the local doctor who is in his 60s, like he's an older gentleman, and the coroner who's come sort of, from somewhere else to try to figure things out. She's a younger than him, but at not the ridiculous age gap that Hollywood gives us now. This woman is clearly, in her late 40s or early 50s. Hard to tell because in the 80s, everybody looked older than they did. But she's clearly an adult woman who has already lived a life. She is widowed. She is an older woman. Not only that, she is also clearly the smartest person in this film. The film knows she is, and everybody in the film knows she is. She is the person who everybody is respecting and going to for information. She's not the, sort of like, I'm a lady doctor and I'm really smart. Look at me in my glasses and my bikini. It's not that kind of character. She's really actually the person who knows what's happening. And then they give us a love story between these two. They take time out of this creature feature to actually show us them on a date with soft lighting, and it's romantic, and the music is so ridiculously love story music. This movie was great. I recommend it to everybody. I think everyone will find something they enjoy in it. I wouldn't say that it is like a good movie. It's not the sort of thing where it's like, oh my god, that was an amazing movie. That This movie, the acting was questionable. Obviously, the effects were terrible as we saw a literal man standing with a fish head on top of him as the bad guy. But there's just so much fun in this. Another ridiculously fun movie I watched is called Homebodies. I'd never heard of it. It is wild. And it's so relevant right now in the housing crisis that we're in. So it's in the 70s, and there's a number of older people who are all retired. They're all pensioners. They're all on fixed incomes. They all live in this one sort of tenement block. And all up and down the street, all of the buildings are being evicted and torn down, and then new things are going up. And so this group of older folks in the one house, they're refusing. They are not going to leave. And through some accidents, some people start dying. People, i.e., like, people from the corporation, the realtors, that sort of stuff, people who are trying to get them to move start dying. It is great. The, these characters are um, adorable. It's kind of like a hijinksy sort of movie. And I must say that if you like action, you will be floored by a chase scene that happens in this movie that takes place on a lake in paddle boats. That is, like where you are pumping your feet trying to get your boat to move, and that happens in this movie, and it's so good. But it's just so, like I said, it's so relevant right now, though, again, because we're in this housing crisis, because there are people, not only people who are on fixed incomes, but certainly them, but also like young families who are being forced out of their houses because everybody wants to raise the rent, make it more expensive. And yeah, it's a problem. So, 1974 movie, incredibly relevant right now in 2024. So, I definitely recommend Homebodies. Let's see, what else did we have here? Oh, yes, I also covered off some of my David Cronenberg holes. So I watched The Brood, which I think might be my favorite Cronenberg film of all time. I just loved it. And I think it was actually probably the first film I watched as part of my challenge last year, and one of my highest rated. And that sort of, I think, probably, affected some of the movies I wanted to watch were just not as good. But The Brood is this amazing body horror about feminine rage. And people hear me often talk about how horror is the most feminist genre of movies there are, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and this is one of those movies that really, really has that. And it's challenging because the main character is a man, Art Hindle. He's great. But we're following him. We're following this father in his sort of like trying to make sure that his child is safe, and um, obviously cares for his ex-wife, or soon to be ex-wife, but she is going through something. She's going through something really wild, and that's what this movie is about, is what she is going through. And even though she could be coded as the villain, it's also just so um it's so recognizable, I think, as a woman to watch all of the things that she's going through. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's it's very um liberating. I don't know, there's something about watching this character and what she's going through and thinking, yeah, that could be me. Maybe that should be me. Maybe I should just let it all out. Just push all those emotions out of me into other things. And then I don't have to worry about it, and it's great. Um, but also loving my emotions. It's very hard to talk about. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't know what happens, none of what I've just said makes any sense. But I recommend it. It is a body horror. So there, as most of David Cronenberg is, so there is some grossness that maybe some people might have some challenges with. But that's just the way Cronenberg goes. I also watched Videodrome. That was another one of those Cronenberg films that I was like, I've never actually seen it. People consider it a masterpiece. I always had to sort of say, yeah, I've never actually seen it. I know I'm a horror fan, but I've never seen Videodrome. So I did finally watch it. I put the James Woods of it all aside and turned it on. As it turns out, James Woods is not the most objectionable part of this movie for me. This that I no, I'm just a no on Videodrome. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it. It's not for me. I'll kind of leave it at that. I think what did I give it? 1 star. And my review of it was, well, I don't have to say I haven't seen it anymore. um, Other people may love it. Obviously, it's people consider it a masterpiece, but for me, it was just a little too much body horror. A little too. Ugh. There's a reason why I haven't seen Existenz, and I will never see Existenz. And Videodrome kind of got halfway there. So, The Brood, probably my favorite David Cronenberg. The year before, I watched Rabid, his first film, which was also incredible. The Fly, good stuff. Scanners, so much fun. Videodrome, not for me. Existenz, not for me. And I have not seen any of his I know he just put something out, which I don't remember the name of. And I've also not watched any of his son's films, Brandon Cronenberg, because I understand he takes the body horror even further. So that's just not for me. Yes, there is a place in horror that I don't like to go to, and that's the body horror. Not so much for me. I will take slashers, which some people consider to be body horror. Obviously, seeing people be sliced and diced is kind of horror about the body, but it's not the same. It doesn't it doesn't elicit the same feelings to me as Cronenberg's grossness. I just can't do it. Um, yeah. So let's see what else. Oh yes, and then my absolute least favorite movie of the year was Sorority Party Massacre, which I feel like it might be a remake of an older movie, but either way, basically, it was terrible. It was essentially what a movie made by people who don't like horror movies, have never watched horror movies, have no idea what it's about, what they have been told it's about, which is hot women with breasts who are getting killed. That's what they think horror movies are. And so then they made one of those movies and it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Um, so, uh, hard no, but also if you're interested in understanding like that what horror is not, that is a good movie to watch because it'll give you exact like it does all of the things that people think horror movies are, and they are incorrect because the movie is terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. So that's last year. 100 full movies. I made it. I think the year before I only got about 88 done. So last year I got all 100. This year I plan to get all 100. I start vacation, but today technically. So in 2 days, it will be August 1st. I have a few movies on my iPad ready to watch while I'm up at the cottage. I left all of the ghost stories and sort of like hauntings. I didn't put any of those on. I'm not going to deal with that when I'm at the at the cottage when it's dark. There's no light. I don't need to. I don't need to think about hauntings. I did, however, load up a bunch of creature features, a bunch of shark movies, because shark movies are great at the cottage. I'm at the beach and I'm gonna watch a shark movie. So that's what I'm gonna do starting soon, and then yeah, I've got lots of time to get ahead on my 100 movies so that by October 31st, hopefully I'm not trying to watch 5 movies in one day, which would be a lot. But yeah, 100 movies in 92 days definitely means I'm going to be watching 2 movies on some of those days. And probably means I'm going to be watching 3 or 4 movies on some days because there's going to be times I won't even get one in. But I did it once and I can do it again. And then right from there, I'll just jump into the Hallmarks because all of the Christmas movies will be starting before Halloween on the Hallmark channel. So that's the rest of my year planned basically. The rest of my year I already know will be full of horror movies and full of Hallmark holiday movies. So it's great to not have to think about what I'm going to watch for the next 6 months of the year. Perfect. I don't have time to think about that sort of stuff. I don't even have time to podcast. So there we go. um, I guess that's it. I'm gonna start my vacation. I'm gonna see if I can remember how to upload these episodes. We'll see. And you can follow me on Letterboxd. That's Sin48, Cinn48. And I don't know. I guess you could follow me on Mastodon. I tend to chat there, but otherwise, I'm kind of like not really on the social media so much anymore. So yeah, that's it. And I guess I will talk to you next year. We'll see. We'll see. You know, I do podcast more often than I do here. I have other shows that I podcast on once a month with the Bookshelf podcast, The Village, and then uh, well, once a month I'd say is probably it's every 3 weeks technically. End Credits Radio, where I review movies. So it's not like I'm not doing this. I'm just not doing it here. So, you know, check me out other places, I guess. All right. That was the sloppiest ending I could think of. So I'm out of here.